Lorraine Garvey of District 32, and I've got the absolute pleasure of having a conversation with Justin Maxwell of Qmark Solutions. How are you, Justin?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Lorraine. And yourself?
I am very well, thank you. This is a good part of the job. The good old chin wag. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Justin, I invited you to have this conversation. You are presenting for us this week at a Maximizer event, and I think it's a really important topic on, the importance of a good process. A good or a bad process can make or break your scale or your growth. So I'm really excited about that, but I really want to step back a wee bit, ask you what you do, who do you work with, and then why you think that was such an important topic for business owners based on the mistakes that you see people make. So that's just a little bit of a framework. So Justin, tell me about Qmark Solutions. What do you do? Who do you do it for?
Well, Qmark Solutions originally started out as an enterprise architecture company. So basically looking at the strategic alignment that IT and business need to come together. As I quickly went through a lot of that, I realized that there was more to do with problem solving than there was to do with architecture. And a lot of that problem solving came in by having a look and reviewing business processes. So that's one element of what Qmark Solutions does in a whole. We actually look at a holistic view of the business and understand where the business could improve. So that could either be shaving on time to do something, improving on how they do something or how they deliver something, the repetition of doing that, then into automation, and all of that falls into a strategic alignment and where we can go with it. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is just help the businesses grow forward, and that's what we try to do as Qmark Solutions.
And how did you end up there? Justin, have you always been a software design architect, deep thinking type person?
I think that's an interesting thing. I always tell people I fell into this sort of position. I think it's more along the lines of I sort of see patterns and the way things are done a bit differently to say how other people might see it. I look at it from the perspective of everyone might say this, but I was diagnosed as ADHD as a young child, a teenager, and there was never really a way for me to fix that. So what I did is I started to look at patterns and principles, and trying to find a place that I could fit in where I could focus on looking at patterns and principles within the working environment. Have I always done this? No, absolutely not. I started out my first business as a sign writer. So I did large format digital prints, those pull-up banners that you have at the forum. I actually specialized in in-office signage where we did a lot of sandblast window for meeting rooms. So that was my first real business.
And were you doing the design aspect of that? Were you the designer?
I was doing all of it. So we would do design, I would do print, I'd do cut, I'd do installation. I've done a shopping center signage. I've done all sorts of things, but I think what I found that I enjoyed most was actually starting a business, running a business, and finding out all the loopholes to get through a number of things and how to streamline and become better at what I was doing. Then I fell back into IT. Now, I say fell back. I had a computer when I was 4 years old, and I started programming and developing as a young kid. Got into all sorts of nonsense, as most kids did in the early thousands, I suppose, with computers. Went out of that, got back into it, worked my way up into sales. So I got really good at speaking to people, really good at understanding that, and then listening. Really, really good at listening to what the problems were that the business wanted and how could that be facilitated by a sale. Fast track, moving to Australia, worked for an enterprise architecture software development company. So that was my first real exposure to the term enterprise architect. And from that perspective, I started to actually just work my way into that, move through training people how to do what is known as BPMN, which is business process modeling notation. So looking at large companies, what they're currently doing, how they're currently doing it, and how could we automate that? Also understanding their entire IT stack and how to move forward around from that perspective as well. I worked for that company for about 4 years before branching out onto myself, starting up this business, Qmark Solutions, and then working my way around that. So no, haven't always done it. Always had an affiliation for solving problems. And I think that's where I know one of your questions is going to be what gets me out is actually that's what it is finding a problem to fix.
Okay. That's what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Correct.
A fixer-upper. Yeah.
Absolutely. Just not with my hands. I'm not a
Yeah,
handyman.
okay.
Don't ask me to change a light bulb. I'll fix an IT infrastructure.
So Justin, tell me though, so for someone who doesn't understand what that is, I've got an IT background, I know what architecture means and the ins and outs of that. But for someone who doesn't, can you give us that in layman's terms? Not the word architecture so much, but what would be a typical, I know this is about how long is a piece of string, right? But what patterns do you see with business owners in particular with regards to mapping out their processes? What's a common problem that your everyday business owner will relate to? Yeah, that's me.
Sure. I can pretty much guarantee that nearly every small, medium business owner hasn't documented all of their processes. So the first thing that sparks to mind is they're not documented, and therefore I'll use sales as an example. And if you don't mind, I'm going to chuck in your lead salesperson, Dean, into this a little bit as well, because I know him very well. He's got an amazing sales process, and I understand that you guys have it documented, but imagine trying to bring somebody on to help Dean out. So Dean becomes a mentor and starts to build that process up. If he's got nothing written down, nothing to showcase how he does what he does to get results he gets, how are you going to train that person effectively? How is that person going to mimic and get the same results that Dean's getting? So without writing your processes down, without documenting them, without testing them, how do you know that they're actually doing what they're doing? So that was just a very loose cannon sort of answer to that. If we went and drilled down a little bit deeper and we had a look at it from a engineering perspective, if you haven't documented every single step that something happens, the output of whatever you are creating would not be the same every single time. And lastly, just so that everybody can understand, look at the McDonald's process to making a burger. If anybody's watched the Ray Kroc story, founder, that is a process in a nutshell. You watch how many gherkins they put in, how many squirts of mustard and ketchup was put on, at what point did everybody do something. And there is a great example of the gentleman, the McDonald's brothers, actually mapping out what the kitchen would look like on the floor and then stepping through it. That is a great example of how to demonstrate and build a process correctly.
Wow. How many business owners do you think actually step through the process and revise it? Or are you saying that's never going to happen because we don't have the process written down in the first place?
I mean, I can't say nobody ever does it, but I'd say it's a very low percentage. 2 out of 10, perhaps, maybe 3 out of 10. It becomes a very difficult thing. And one of the workshops and use cases that we do is when we're looking to review someone's process in an organization, is we get everybody in a round table, we get those wonderful colored sticky notes, and we hand it out and we say, right, what do you do? They write it down. Who do you give that to? Go give it to that person. What does that person do with it? They write something down. Well, now what do you do with it? And we make them walk through it. And you can quickly see where that slip up is because someone will go, oh, I don't know what happens to this ticket, or that's not what I actually receive, or that's not what I really give. And so you start to really see where the shortcomings come in.
Even that itself is really fantastic. That's something that I could do with my team. On a simple process to test the process. I actually love that. And yeah, when we're not in that space, you don't think of doing these things. Just like everybody read the document. Is it right? Does it look right?
The problem with that is that everybody reads the document but interprets it slightly differently. Or what happens if you've got a star player in your environment who says, we could skip 2 steps if we just did this? How do you test that theory?
And when did they get the opportunity to say that?
Exactly. So it's a good thing to review these sort of things 6 months annually, depending on the size of the process and what it actually costs you.
Now, I'm assuming here, I'm just thinking off the bat, for a standard process, big or small, if we streamline one process or one hefty process, then the time and the money savings can be absolutely phenomenal. And then also that repetitive stuff that we do because it's not automated and we're doing the same thing. Or it's like the old, how many times do you walk to the copy machine and back again, you know? Having manual, non-automated, non-thought-out processes can just kill a business.
Oh, absolutely. It's the death by 1,000 cuts in the situation.
Okay.
So if we have a look at, you're doing and try and think of something that I can use here. But if you're doing something that's repeated every day, let's say you've got to invoice out your clients, you've got 7 days to invoice, and every day that you're late, you're going to pay a penalty, or every day the payment is late, they're going to pay a penalty. You know, you're going to start to streamline that process quite quickly because it affects that sort of your bottom line. Now, if you're not invoicing your clients on time, you're not getting paid on time. Therefore, your cash flow is hindered on by that many days, weeks, months, whatever it might come out to be. That's a very small, like that's a very quick example. But what happens if you're doing a process like, I'll take, for example, an airline where they decided to cut out one olive from, you know, the business and first class salad that went in. Now, you wouldn't think one olive would cost a lot, but they ended up saving hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of that airline just by cutting out an olive from say 4 olives to 3 olives. Do you think the
Wow.
passengers care? No. The airline then saves on that. And what that does is that's a very small single thing that you can change. So if you're having a look at a process that you spoke about where you're repeating it every single day, imagine one of those steps was duplicated. And that took somebody say an hour or half an hour, and you're paying that person $100 an hour. So if it takes them an hour to do it, you're paying them $100 an hour, and they're duplicating it. That's $200 with 100 of waste. How many times are they doing that? Let's say they're doing that, I don't know, 10 times in a month. And then you times that by how many months are in the year that they're doing that process, times that by 5 years. You can very quickly start to work out how much money that's actually costing you.
Mm-hmm. And that's the cost of not reviewing your processes. You know, there's always a cost of not doing it. So what do you, I guess that's the reward then, isn't it? Seeing the end goal and the business owner smiling, not just because they're going to save time and money, but because there's no headaches chasing pieces of paper around the room.
Absolutely. But look at it from a staff perspective. How would you feel if you were doing the same thing twice a day, but not actually seeing the result?
Yeah.
So yes, the business is a key point because they're going to be saving some dollars, some time, whatever it might be, maybe more effectiveness use of the employees. Look at it from a staff perspective. I can tell you right now, I've been in organizations where you're continually redoing the same steps over and over again because they weren't documented correctly. There wasn't something to follow. I mean, in my junior years as an employee, I didn't understand what that looked like. I just did what I was told, not really thinking about how to go about it. And every time you'd raise it to management, they're like, nope, that's our process. You do it without any arguments. And I can sit there going, but I'm doing this twice. That's costing time, that's costing money, that's costing a whole bunch of things. And it's frustrating as all hell as an employee to sit there and do that. So you can look at it from a number of different angles, I think.
So Justin, give me then, what's your top tips for business owners? And then how can people contact you? What's the top tips?
I think from the top tips is have a look at what your repeatable process is. Don't rush automation. Everybody is on the bandwagon of AI and ChatGPT and how much we can automate. And I love ChatGPT. I'm very much across it. But if you've got an incorrect process and you think that automating it is going to fix that, you're going to be so wrong in that. It's not going to, I can't even have the words to describe that the complexities that might actually cause you. So I would say have a look at your repeatable processes. Can you cut any fat out of that? Can you look to streamline it? Could you save a cost here and there? Even if it's a dollar repeated is a dollar saved. Look at it from a time perspective, review your processes, set up a structure to allow your teams to help you to review those, the people on the ground doing that, and don't automate too quick. Make sure your process is 110% perfect before you look at automation, because one step out of joint, will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, how people can contact me, you can email me or you can contact me via my website. So the website is qmark.solutions. That's it. There's no .com.au. It's just qmark.solutions. And the email address is justin.maxwell@qmark.solutions.
Justin, thank you very much for your time today, and I am very excited to hear you present on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See
I
you
look
later.
forward to it.
Right, bye. I'll see you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.